know that in some areas of our country right now, that you cannot say from the pulpit that homosexuality is a sin? It's actually against the law. And that's why we need a separation of church and state. We've certainly been laying a foundation to help us understand the relationship between Christians and government, or the church and government. We've talked about the role of government, church, the market. We've put those roles into an answer grid that helps us to determine how we ought to think about different policy or social issues. In other words, when we think about abortion or adultery or health care or homosexual marriage, are those things that should be regulated by the government, dealt with in the church, or handled by the market? But I think there's a nagging question in the minds of many Christians today, and that question revolves around the separation of church and state. Again, it seems like there's a lot of misunderstanding in our nation as to what that means, but more importantly, it seems like Christians are giving up the fight if we go down that road. I mean, we're talking about bringing America back. We're talking about a righteous nation and those kinds of things. And so it seems sort of counterintuitive or counterproductive to talk about a separation of church and state, particularly when you think about the way in which some folk have twisted that concept. So again, what are we to make of this whole idea of the separation of church and state? Well, we need to begin, of course, in the Bible, and we need to go to the New Testament, and we need to understand the New Testament's vision of a composite society. Now, composite simply means multifaceted or multi-part. And so the United States, that's the context we're talking about mainly, it's a composite society. In other words, there are a lot of different groups of folk that live in the United States. There are a lot of different religious groups. You can talk about Christians and Buddhists and Muslims and Jews and on and on and on and on and on. It's a composite society. Well, prior to the New Testament, most societies were what we would call sacral societies or religious societies. And if you wanted to get along in that society, then you had to adhere to the societal religion. The Roman Empire was a sacral society in the days of the New Testament. There was a pantheon of gods in the Roman Empire, and you could worship any of those gods that you wanted to, but ultimately every single Roman citizen had to bow the knee to Caesar. He had to be willing to say that Caesar is Lord. And that's why the Christians were persecuted in those days, because they weren't willing to say that. In fact, they said just the opposite. They said Jesus is Lord. But that's what a sacral society is. But when you come to the New Testament, again, it envisions a composite society. And that's why we've said already that the church, the people of God today, is a people within a people. God